a lot of women are training against their bodies. And it's exactly why you feel exhausted, inconsistent, and like nothing is working. Because no one has ever taught you this. Your body is not designed to perform the same way every single day of the month. We are talking with Adrienne Irizarry, and she is a cycle alchemist. What I'm most excited to talk to her about is the back and forth we kind of see on the internet and conversation boards about working out, exercising, and movement during your female cycle. Hey, Adrienne, how are you?
So great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a delight to be here.
I'm so excited to hear. And if you don't know already, or you're not following her already, Adrienne has her own podcast. It's tell us what the name is. The Reproductive Rebel. And it is actually just really digging in. And we're not here to diagnose anybody, but we want to give you real thought leadership, real skills, real tools to consider your cycle, because it doesn't always require a pill or a surgery or an interaction. A lot of what we're feeling and acknowledging as women, especially women still in our cycles, in our periods, the way we are showing up in the world, whether it's our nervous system, our mindset, or physical ability, really does teeter and put a lot of emphasis and energy into how we move forward based on what cycle we're in.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. So I probably should define cycle alchemist a little bit. So
Yes.
I work with people in all of the seasons and cycles of their life. Okay. So I help young girls get their periods started in a healthy way. Goodness, there are so many that have cramps these days. I help with period problems. So cramps, PMS, PMDD, when your cycle isn't working really well. And this actually dovetails with our conversation today. When your nervous system feels like it's being chased by a tiger, it will show up in your reproductive system. And, we can dive into why as we go through. But I work with the fertility journey. So when people are struggling to get pregnant, when they've been given that kiss of death, unexplained infertility diagnosis, and they don't know where to go, I am totally your girl. That's actually why I got started in this work, because I was one of those people. And I went to all the specialists in the land and there were no answers. And so I was like, well, you know what? I was the why child growing up. Like, there has to be a reason why this is not working for me.
Yeah.
And I went in search of that answer. So I'm particularly versed at the fertility journey. I specialize in 35 and older because that tends to be the portion of the fertility population that gets gaslit the most often.
Yeah.
And now perimenopause, like not just because I'm in it, but because there are millions of us hitting this phase of our life right now going, what the fuck is going on in my body? Yeah. And, people who've had babies later, it's like, is it perimenopause? Is it postpartum? Like, so there's so many aspects to this. And because we haven't had that like older grandmother kind of information transfer like we used to have. Yeah. There's a lot of us that like learned about our periods because somebody stuck a box of tampons through the door and was like, figure it out, kid. Congratulations.
Can we start by telling our first period story? It sounds really close to what you just said. It was here, get on the school bus. It's time to go. I'm like, what? Yes, it's traumatic if you don't know what's coming, if you don't know what's ahead. And as we know, public education has been sort of saddled with this idea, especially with the culture that we're in, the puritanical sort of culture where we don't talk about sex, or we're afraid to talk about sex with our children or any physical process that has to do with the reproductive, because there's this morality aspect where the truth is maybe parents don't have the answers and they don't feel equipped to explain that. So children, women, we're all sort of left with this idea of whatever was offered to us by the physical education teacher, right? Because that's their second job usually, is like the phys ed guy gets to talk about, sex and reproduction. And it's a lot of giggles. It's a lot of, uncomfortableness, but most of us don't get a solid education about what's going on with our body And what we're finding out even more is that kids nowadays or young people nowadays learned most of their information from the internet. And that is a wide stroke. You don't know where the information's coming from. So that's a whole nother topic for another day, very likely. But I can't tell you how many times I have worked with a client who is pregnant for the first time or is struggling to get pregnant in that sort of case. And the conversation is always, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Whether it was that there are phases to their cycle, that there's a certain time that they get pregnant. And it's funny how the market has exploded in response to, I can wear this ring and it'll tell me, exactly what day, hour, and time to get pregnant. So what are you seeing? What are you noticing in your practice? Is it folks trying to get pregnant, people not really understanding their own body?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so are you ready for a soapbox, Daphne? Because
of course. Let me get mine out. Yes, of course.
This is what I step onto regularly.
Yes.
Our public education around reproductive health is abysmal. When I first started doing this work, I was really passionate about creating meaningful tools to teach people about how to care for themselves in the different phases of their cycle. And then a year and a half into that and really not having a lot of traction, all of a sudden it hit me. They don't even know they have 4 phases of their cycle.
Yes.
Let alone that there's actually a care and use manual that goes along with it. And, backing that out, I started kind of polling my clients and being so random question, how did you find out about how your cycle works, right?
Yes.
And a lot of it was this, I got a box of tampons through the door, or I was told to keep pads in my bag just in case. And then when I saw blood, I had to go to the nurse's office because I didn't know what to do with the pad. There was no instruction whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a Catholic household. God, talk about bleeding and sex and periods. It was a whole thing. I'm grateful that my mom sat me down with a book and was this is, your body is going to bleed at some point. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing else.
That's more advanced than I got. But go ahead. I was that's a lot more advanced for me. I was what just happened? Am I dying? What's going on? Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing. My mom, my grandmother started at 9. So my mom was afraid that I was going to have the same experience. And then I would be afraid because she remembered her mom talking about waking up with blood all through her bed thinking she was dying. And my mom didn't want that for me. So I'm grateful that she took that step. But I had to look at my peer group to really learn about how the birds and the bees worked, right? And all you got in high school was don't put the P in the V because you'll get pregnant.
Don't kiss a girl. Don't hold her hand. Yes.
And if you put the P in the V, here's the long list of diseases you can get as a result of it.
It's really about disease prevention. Yeah. It's not about education. It's about disease prevention. Yeah.
Well, and at the time, and I'm going to date myself. Here we go. But
welcome to the internet. Go ahead.
But this was the time frame where the AIDS epidemic was at a fever pitch, right? So of course,
exactly.
Prevention for sexually transmitted diseases was really the focal point. But I have had hundreds of women walk through the doors of my practice and go, what do you mean that's what day 1 is of my cycle? I've been counting from when I spot beforehand, when I stop bleeding. I haven't ever counted my cycle because I didn't know how. I had people that, oh my God, one of the cases that broke my heart the most was a couple that came in. They had been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. They had had diagnostics done at the doctor's office. They had been to specialists. She had had follicular scans, and nobody thought to tell them when her fertile window was. She had had a friend in high school tell her that you can get pregnant the 5 days before you have your period. And that is when this young couple had been trying month over month over month, and they couldn't figure out why they weren't getting pregnant. Now, granted, I did have to do a little bit of work with them to just make sure that their bodies were functioning optimally, but they got pregnant first try because they were in their late 20s. But think about all those years lost simply because they didn't know when the fertile window was. A lot of people take hormonal birth control for decades thinking that you can get pregnant all month long because that's kind of the narrative that we're fed. Go on birth control so you don't get pregnant. Don't put the P in the V because you're going to get pregnant. But that's not something that can happen all month long. You only have 7 days, guys.
Yep.
That's it. 7 days. In
case that's new news to anybody. Just want to underline.
And there's no shame in that.
Yes.
Because honestly, it is a statement of the colossal falling down of body literacy here in the United States, particularly in the West. So this is where I get rather animated around some of the legislation that is coming out and being disseminated around regulating women's reproductive health, because a lot of those women haven't even been taught how their cycle works.
Yes. Let's start there. Let's start with the education. Yeah.
So your first day of fresh red flow is the first day of your cycle. Okay? No spotting beforehand, brown, red, pink, or otherwise. It does not matter. If it is spotting and it is not flow-like, it is not your period.
What do we call this phase? Let's make it really, really clear for people. This is
Yes, this is menstruation, which is the small micro event that kicks off the follicular phase. So we have 2 halves to our menstrual month. Each of those halves has a little event that starts it. Okay, so for the first half of your month, you are in the follicular phase. It is about substance. It is about building a blood-rich endometrial lining after you've shed the one from the previous month. So menstruation, when it is healthy, is 4 to 6 days of fresh red flow, no cramping, no brown blood, no clots, no funny business. And I know that there are people out there listening to this going, girl, you are insane. That has never been my lived reality.
Right. Yes.
I was totally that skeptic before I started doing this. I have endometriosis. I had a shit period straight out of the gate. And I was one of the millions of women who found themselves on birth control by the age of 15 because my period was a hot mess express. I couldn't function. I couldn't go to school. The pain was unbelievable. I used to spend an entire week joking with my mother that I was going to give myself a grapefruit spoon hysterectomy because I was so miserable that I could not imagine that could be any more painful than what I was going through. It was debilitating.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this from a place of I've suffered, I've been in the trenches, I get it.
Yeah. I remember,
And that kind of birth control, so hormonal birth control is a class 1 carcinogen. It has a black box warning label on it, the same way that cigarettes and other things do, and a lot of people don't realize that. Well, that landed me in an ER at 25 years old having a heart attack because I had been on birth control for about 10 years at that point. So at that moment, I had to completely rethink, how the hell does my body work?
Yeah.
How do I take care of this body? Because the only way I had ever known was this pill that I relied on in order to actually be able to function. So knowing these phases of your cycle really does become a fundamentally important aspect of you being able to and live your most vibrant life.
Yes, I agree.
So menstruation, 4 to 6 days, fresh red blood only. No cramping, no clotting, no pain, no funny business. It comes in nice and light. It gets heavier day 2, 3, comes back down and cruises to the finish line. That's how it should go. And for the vast majority of women, that is not how it goes. So cramps are normalized, but they are not normal. Okay?
Yeah.
Headaches and PMS and PMDD are normalized, but they are not normal. And I can come back to all of that in a second. So once you get done your bleeding days, which is usually the only part of the month that most of us focus on, or the 3 to 5 days ahead of the period starting, because emotional and physical symptoms disrupt our lives as well. So in the follicular phase, it's all about development. You are on day 3 of your cycle, your FSH level rises, your follicle stimulating hormone. It rises and it starts the hormone cascade that tells your body, we're going to prepare for a pregnancy. Regardless of whether that's your goal or not, your body's always trying to get you pregnant. Sorry.
Stand down. Yes, agreed.
So your follicle begins developing. That is where the egg is released for fertilization for that month, and the blood-rich endometrial lining begins developing. So it will continue to develop until ovulation. Ovulation is that other micro event that I was talking about that kicks off the beginning of the luteal phase. Ovulation is where you should feel the best of the entire month. If you're symptomatic, that tells a story, but it should be where you feel the best the entire month. Go get your headshot, ladies, because your face will be symmetrical.
And glowing. Yes, exactly.
You will glow because your body is literally trying to attract a mate.
Yes, thank you. Eggs shot out of the cannon into the tubes. Yes. Yes.
So ovulation really is like a 24 to 36 hour event. Like that's it. And then we start the remainder of the luteal phase, which the first 5-ish days of the luteal phase, sometimes 7, we usually feel pretty good. We have more stamina, we have energy. We're starting to get more into that like planning focused energy. Our brains are like wired for like more depth in terms of strategic tasks during that time frame. And I teach a course on like essentially how to work in all of these phases because each of them gives us intellectual gifts too. But in the part that gets the bad rap in the luteal phase is in those few days leading up to the bleed, because this is where PMS symptoms start coming in. This could be physical, like cramping. This could be headaches. This could turn you into a fire-breathing dragon, and you could hate everyone and want to lay waste to the entire kingdom. Whatever level of angst that comes with that is normalized. And we have tons of memes and all of these things about how this is a joke in our culture, but really it's your body's way of saying, hey, I need a little more love and support. Please send help.
Can I also say anecdotally the highest amount of testosterone for women?
Yes.
And I'm laughing about that because we've all seen this meme 100 times. As you're progressing towards that menstruation again, this is when testosterone is highest in your body. So in some ways, you're not acting like a woman. You're acting like a dude. So you are a little more aggressive, a little more. This is normal. This is not something that is being, performative. This is what happens when testosterone is at a higher level in your body. So yes. Yeah.
Testosterone's more of a self-centered hormone. So is progesterone. And estrogen is the community hormone. It's the softening hormone.
I like the way you said that. Yeah.
It's the one that makes us like focused on the people around us. And this is why when we get to perimenopause, like our field of fucks is barren. Our threshold for dealing with garbage gets a lot lower because we have less estrogen. We're not trying to keep up with pleasing everybody any longer. The things that we've swept under the rug for years and years and years for the good of the people.
Yeah, we don't need to. We don't need to be with anybody anymore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, it's refreshing. I mean, I started communicating this to my family years ago. Like, my kids were trained. I'd be like, Mom's moon time is coming. All the laundry needs to appear in the laundry room because I need to get it done before I get there, because I wasn't lifting laundry baskets when I was, I move my body. I walk, I do Qigong, I will do some like lighter yin yoga. Like I move my body when I'm on my period. I have to.
Yes.
But, and we all really should. But like, I am not trying to personal record my heavy lifting days during my bleed. Like, I won't lift laundry baskets. I am a minimalist in terms of how I am scheduled and what it is that I do, because how we care for ourselves and the kind of rest that we give ourselves during these bleeding days sets you up for success the rest of the month. It makes you less symptomatic, have more energy, your immune system performs better, all of these kinds of things when you understand the needs of each phase. And my family's trained at this point. I'm just like, nope, my period's coming. Sorry, we're going to have to wait a couple of days to do this thing. Or I will say, I don't have the energy for this right now. Can we put this on the schedule a couple days from now or something of that nature?
Yes.
And, there was so much shame when I was young about being a bleeding body, like the tucking of the pad up the sleeve and the run to the bathroom because you didn't want anyone to know. Like,
heaven
that was
forbid.
such a thing. And it's really refreshing to see that younger women are being more of an owner of this being part of their life. I've seen a big mental shift as I'm seeing younger clients, and that part is really refreshing. But there's still a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of people suffering because they simply don't know how their cycle works throughout the whole course of the month. And then, by the time you've been cycling for many years and you get to perimenopause and your cycle starts going haywire, it essentially is highlighting the fact that it has experienced years of neglect and generally it's through a lack of information. And burning the candle at both ends and thinking we need to work like men when we're infradian rhythm beings and we are not testosterone-driven beings. Although, like you said, it does change as we go through this process. And this is why postmenopausal women are amazing leaders, because they have more of the linearness of the testosterone-driven beings, but they still retain a piece of their estrogen, which makes them more community-focused.
Yeah. They're building. Yeah, they're not trying to stack a hierarchy. They're really, really trying to network in that way that actually benefits everyone. I'm always impressed when I meet female leaders or I talk to them on the show is that they get it. Like, their power is not in like their ego of hierarchy to I'm senior to this person. It really is in their networking, in their I work well with this person, we're on the same page and that sort of thing. Wow, I'm always astounded to see that. Now, one of the biggest things I wanted to go over with you on this show or dig into on this show is working, like you said, working against your own period, right? So we grew up in the 90s. I'm laughing about this. But I mean, how often was the girl bleeding through her white pants like a punchline in a show or a movie or that sort of thing? Like you said, there was so much shame around it and hiding and working, trying to keep that sort of ego approach where we were working against our bodies instead of with our bodies. And of course, that comes with all sorts of acne, hormones, nervous conditions, that sort of thing. Our body is fully integrated in those ways. So when we are on the show, we like to talk about like activity. And I'm glad you said you have trained your family for this. But let's talk about day 3, right? Let's talk about when, a lot of times women, and I know a lot of them now, they're always pushing past. They want to make sure that they showed up, they hit their PR every time they came in, and day 3, as you illustrated earlier, we were talking about this, is one of those days where you better call it back. You better call it back, because that is one of the days that your body needs it's not that there's something wrong with you. It just needs all the resources you have for this incredible piece of your cycle, right?
Yeah. So day 3 is where our FSH rises. We tend to feel like we have more energy on that day than we did on day 1 and 2. Well, we've also lost the majority of the blood that we're going to lose in this flushing of the endometrial lining process. So our tank is on E just about the time we start feeling like, oh, I haven't gone to the gym in 2 days. I really need to get my ass in the gym, and I'm being lazy and right? And we push ourselves in there and then we get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is actually the number. Yep. Most women get hurt when it comes to any type of physical paralysis. So it's really interesting. We could just score all the Olympics based on the moon cycles and things like that. We'll get into that one. But the truth is, that is one of the times when women are most noticing injuries at this phase of life, is during that mid-period phase, because you literally are pushing past when your body's telling you to calm the fuck down.
Yeah,
right?
mid-period. And there was a study done in the UK of 100 women soccer players, and the highest number of ACL injuries was just before ovulation. So again, just before another big hormonal shift in your 28 to 30 day cadence, okay? Because your cycle should be on average 28 to 30 days in length from the first day of fresh red blood until the first day of fresh red blood appears again. So because of that, there are certain points during that time frame where you are built to deadlift a truck, and then there are parts of that month where you have to pull back. It doesn't mean don't move. It doesn't mean that you can't lift. It doesn't mean that you can't do certain things, but you have to pull the intensity back because you are more injury prone. And as we get older, that becomes like even more something to consider. Because I'll see perimenopausal women who are dealing with menobelly. So they feel very frustrated because all of their emotions have essentially dumped themselves into their abdomen. They're eating well, they're moving their body, but they're like, I don't understand why I'm not losing any weight. And if you're overburdening your system, you're getting a cortisol dump. So if you're overtaxing the system, your body still thinks it's being chased by a tiger. So the kind of exercise and the intensity and duration that you were doing before you hit perimenopause, there is a huge invitation from your body to revisit how you're structuring that as you're getting into perimenopause in order to actually achieve the goals that you're looking for without essentially working against it. Because like, again, you and I were raised during that time frame where everything was low fat.
God, yeah.
Yep. It wasn't that long after Title IX. So everybody, our female generation felt like we had to like live for the things that our moms couldn't do. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with going to college, right? Because financial aid had just really like revisited itself in how it was structured. So there were more of us that were eligible to go to college because of those programs. And so like there was this huge push for so many of us that fall in that like late 30s to mid 40s range to essentially be what our mothers couldn't be so that they could live vicariously through us. At the same time, we were told that we had to work like a man in order to be successful. So no wonder there's millions of us hitting perimenopause going, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yes.
Because our bodies have been overspent for so long, overextended for so long that we then get to this big, I saw a meme the other day. They called it cougar puberty. And I just about died laughing.
My favorite new term.
Because it is a form of puberty. Just like your hormones are coming online in order for your first bleed to happen, they are going offline in order to stop bleeding.
It's fascinating you say that. And I'm glad you brought up the training and the Title IX, because what I see and what I know is that coaching isn't specific in the way it should be. So when we talk about Title IX and coaching, a lot of women's teams were still being coached by men because they assumed that the way men train or the way women need to train. And we're still seeing that across the board. That is a big conversation we need to consider because, and we can dig into that later too. But it's one of those things where it is a different training module. It needs to be. You're a different body. You have different physiology. So we said day 3, you've lost the most blood. Imagine going to the emergency room and losing so much blood and then telling yourself that you need to show up the next day and hit a personal best. Now, like you said, we're actually pretty powerful as women as far as training goes. What is the ideal time or phase for us to jump in and do some of that powerlifting and start hitting some of our personal best?
Yeah. So ovulation. Just before ovulation. So ramp up. So once your bleed stops, give yourself 2 or 3 days to intentionally refuel.
Yes.
Okay. So
you've lost some blood, folks. Yeah.
You've lost blood. Your body's looking for key nutrients and it's looking for certain supports for the overall energetic body. So intentional refueling in that 2 to 3 days right afterwards is absolutely critical in order for you to have the energy and stamina that you need for the rest of the month.
Are you offering certain supplements herbally, or I know you're a Chinese nutritionist, right? That's sort of your training. What are some of those things that, I mean, we could check the TikTok shop. But no, I mean, in reality, like, what are some of the key nutrients that you might suggest to a client who's coming through that phase?
I suggest bone broth from the beginning of the bleed all the way through. And I know
Nice.
for the meat freers, that is not a super popular suggestion. But the reason for that is there are certain amino acid chains that we cannot get in a plant-based diet that we need to get from animal products. Bone
Complex
broth
proteins.
is the easiest way to do it. It helps with hydration. It helps with a very robust, I'm a food as medicine based practitioner. So I'm going to talk to you about like how it works in an actual day-to-day diet. I'm not as much a nutraceutical kind of person. Bone broth is going to give you a really complete minerals, nutrient base. So have the soup during your bleed. Make sure that you're getting something with bone broth, whether you're cooking your quinoa with it or your rice with it, or you're using it as a soup, or some of my clients just pour it into a cup and put a little Himalayan sea salt in it and just do it that way. But it's going to help you with the tools that you need to rebuild. Dark leafy greens are going to help you with the tools to rebuild. They also help with estrogen. So, even long before we were able to kind of pull apart our food to see what their nutritive properties were, there was an understanding that certain colors of foods, at least in the Chinese tradition, support different systems in the body. So you're looking at things that are dark green in this phase to help rebuild what you've lost. So, and making sure that you're eating often. Okay. No skipping of lunch, please. No fasting or working out fasting during your bleed. You need fuel. So we're going to build back what it is that we lost. You're going to start feeling your energy pick up. You're going to want to exercise a little bit harder. In that day or so before you ovulate, just be a little careful with your joints. You can do compound lifts, but when they're like in a line rather than things where like you're doing a lot of twisting, because that's where you're going to have more problems with your joints. And then when you hit ovulation, you're good. That's where you do your heaviest lifts. I find that I can really lift heavy from like ovulation, which is, anywhere from day 13 to 17 of someone's cycle, depending on their cycle length.
Yeah.
For me, it's usually like 13, 14. By day 15, I'm like definitely making sure that all my lifts are about as heavy as I can handle. And I will do that all the way through. I mean, there have been periods of my life that I find that I can go right up until my bleed starts. There have been parts of my life where like I feel like I need to start taking the intensity down incrementally in the 2 or 3 days beforehand. But that's where I invite you to really listen to your body, because that kind of movement is great for you during the luteal phase because it helps to keep some of the cranky bug away.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
you're moving your circulation.
Stuck energy, right? Mm-hmm. And also, these hormones are also affecting your nervous system, and movement is one of those great ways to keep the nervous system in regulation. So I love that you said that. Can we just like pen this, by the way? Like, we've got this new fitness diet where we tell people exactly what to eat, what day to lift, what day not to lift, because we know, especially as we're aging into perimenopause, that we don't want to skip a lot of lifting. We don't want to skip a lot of strength work. And that starts earlier. That starts as soon as we're post 16. It's, a lot of times in health and fitness, we talk about not wanting to do a lot of lifting outside of our body weight until we're 16, because we have all those growth plates and things to consider. Once we're in that sort of phase where we've made our way into maturation, we're not worried about affecting our ability to grow and those sort of things. Lifting is really important, having that strength training, and that means something different for each person. So, but I love that we are coming up with this exact format because it is so wishy-washy and back and forth. I know there's always a lot of opinions because, one, it's really hard to have a regulated period. There's just so much concern. But I think this education that you and I are talking about is when we embrace our cycle, when we understand our cycle, and I'm sad that we're just figuring this out at 40, right? That we can share this with everybody. But for posterity's sake, it makes so much sense that this is not about shame. This is about knowing when your superpower kicks in for different things. Wow.
100%. I mean, I look back at my 20s and I used to be a competitive martial artist. And so I look at the tournaments that I went to and the competitions that I went to when I was close to my bleed versus the ones that I went to in the middle of my cycle. I won every round. And I never put that together. It wasn't until I was working with a trainer later on in my life, and I was doing more kickboxing and Muay Thai at that point. I was preparing for an exhibition fight for kickboxing. I hadn't had one in a while, and I just needed to get back into the ring and essentially prove that my old ass could handle it. So I was preparing for this fight, and my trainer said to me, he goes, "Well, where are you in your cycle?" He goes, "Like, I really think that you could fight pro." And I was like, oh God, I feel like that ship has sailed because, I'm in my 30s at this point, and I had a 5-year-old daughter, and you know what I mean? Like, I just really I really thought that ship had sailed. And he goes, seriously, he goes, you have what it takes in order to do it. He's like, I would need to know your cycle better than you do. And it was the first time, and he was an older gentleman.
Wow.
And it was the first time I had
Who
ever
is he?
had
Write his name down. Let's save him forever. Yeah, let's give him a medal. Yes.
And I remember saying to him, I was like, damn, Matt, like I had never thought about it that way. And as I started thinking about it, because again, this was like right on the early edges of, I had already done my Chinese nutritional therapy training. I was like starting to figure out how I wanted to do this as work to be able to support other people. And that really hit me. And I started really thinking about it. And I even went back in my period tracker. I was like, okay, so I did this tournament here. I wonder, like, where was I in my cycle? And sure as shit, every time I was near ovulation, I won. Anytime that I was in my late luteal phase, it was either close or I lost. And it's like, man, like, why do we not understand that?
Why are we not working with this?
Infradian rhythm is so important to understand for women to function optimally.
Adrienne, I feel like we need to dig into some of these other nuances and specifics, because I know that, even just the way we show up, and at different phases of our cycle sometimes is inconvenient for the corporate world and things like that. So I have a lot of clients who are high performing, showing up in court, showing up in a boardroom. And a lot of times that's one of the biggest concerns we have is like where their energy is, where they are in their cycle. And some of them are, into perimenopause and menopause in that case. So working with them in that way. But I think you and I could dig down even further into this. But Adrienne, where can people find you? Where can people learn or even work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Moon Essence. You can find me at moonessence.life. I'm on Instagram, Moon Essence Me, for Maine, ME. Yes, I'm from Maine. But I do telehealth. I would say the majority of my practice is actually telehealth. So, location is no issue. You just reach out to me and we can figure something out. I love working with people one-on-one. I have a lot of offerings on my website. Also, I have a program called the Alchemist Toolkit that essentially takes you through, here are the phases of your cycle. Here's how you care for the phases of your cycle so that people get that guidebook that they've been looking for. And I have more specific things around perimenopause and fertility and those aspects of things. But really, like, it all starts with understanding, like, how does your cycle work? I talk about it a little bit on my podcast, Reproductive Rebel. But I love questions. So please reach out to me. I would love to help you however it feels good to you.
Oh, Adrienne, thank you for this conversation. This was just a lot of fun anyway. But I think that with regards to performance and showing up and giving people the tools, or women the tools in particular, to make their cycle work for them is an untapped resource. Adrienne, thank you for being with us. I'm looking forward to more conversations about how to optimize.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.